In this video, I would like to talk about how to become a successful salesperson. I've known many people who had a lot of talent, who knew all the techniques, and when you first met them, they were big talkers with big mouths, and you thought, wow, this person is really great at selling. But the reality is that in order to be successful at selling, it requires a certain set of attitudes and skills that are not always visible right away. Basically, it means selling is a mental game. There's certain things you have to do in order to be successful. There's the law of cause and effect, and it means that top salespeople think and act differently than average salespeople. Well, there is the $1 Million Sales Club, and I was fortunate to be part of that $1 Million Sales Club, which means being able to make $1 million through your skills in sales. And that takes a different kind of mental mindset and attitude, and I want to teach you and show you how you can become one of those kind of salespeople. So everybody, when they started in sales, started maybe at making $50,000 or something like that a year, but then maybe turned to $250,000, maybe $500,000 a year, and eventually a few of them broke through and achieved $1 million a year. So how do you become a successful salesperson, and what does it take in regards to your activities and in regards to your mental attitude? Well, in order to become a really good salesperson, first you must master the basics. And I mean the basics of your sales process, which means, for example, your sales skill like rhetoric, question techniques, your basic setup, how you communicate, but then also prospecting on the phone, identifying clients' needs, asking questions, dealing with objections, closing, and things like that. So those are the basic sales elements, and I have the whole list in the brochure. So you need to focus on becoming the very best in each area of the sales process. Now, imagine this. You have a chain, and the chain is connected and linked with all the other factors, okay? And the chain is only as strong as your weakest link. So let's say if you're not strong at prospecting on the phone, that might be the one factor that will hold you back. So therefore, you must make sure that each one of those factors are something that you know really well, where you improve your skills, improve your knowledge, improve your ability, so that you can function well. So mastering the basic sales element is the first step to becoming great. Even though you're already good at them, you need to not just become good, you need to become great in every single area. I've seen average salespeople with average, let's say, ability or talent to be number one on the list at the end of the month because they were simply active. They were never lazy. They set lots of appointments, and because they set lots of appointments, they were making up for all their shortcomings that they had. Maybe they weren't as great as closing, or maybe they weren't great in the presentation and so forth. But because they set so many appointments, and because they were just not scared of filling up their entire weekly agenda, that's why they would have a better result at the end of the month than other people who had great talent and were amazing in how they could speak and so forth. But because they weren't setting as many appointments, that's why they would fail. So one of the personal factors that you must do is never be lazy. Set at least 3 or 4 appointments per day. Sales is like math. Sales is predictable, and you can calculate how much money you will make at the end of the month by solely focusing on the numbers. So let's say you want to earn $10,000 at the end of the month. And you know your average sales commission, for example, is $500. Therefore, you need to get 20 clients in order to achieve your goal. Now, but in order to get 20 clients, let's say you have a closing rate of 50% as an example, and therefore you must have 40 actual sales presentations where you can try to close. But in order to have 40 presentations, maybe you need to set 50 meetings because people always cancel or change their meetings. And in order to get 50 meetings, maybe you need to make 500 phone calls in a month, okay, per month. So let's say those are your numbers, okay? And you can actually predict and improve each step of the way, and you must focus on the end result. What is it that you want to achieve? And then focus on the activities like making those initial phone calls that will help you achieve this goal. And you can ask yourself, how can you get better clients? How can you get better leads? How can you improve your presentation skills? How can you improve your closing rate? And so forth. And you can change the numbers and you can improve your results along the way. But math or sales is like math, and it's a numbers game. And whatever you do, focus on the numbers, and that's where you can make improvements. Ask yourself, who is your ideal client? Because there are 3 types of clients typically. You have an A client, you have a B client, and you have a C client. And what's interesting is an A client has maybe a certain income level that obviously they have more money and therefore they can, buy more products. B clients are good clients, and C clients are, let's say, average to bad clients. And here's the interesting part. A lot of A clients know other people in the same income level, and they know other A clients. A lot of B clients know other B people, and a lot of C people know C or even D clients, right? So what you want to do is you want to focus your time on the first 2 groups where you know they have money, they have the potential, and they're more likely to close a deal because they can afford it, whatever your products are. And you want to focus on these 2 groups because once you're stuck in the wrong group and you get referrals only from this group here, then it's hard to get out of it. And it takes exactly the same amount of time to deal with an A client as it takes to deal with a C client. As a salesperson, often the 80-20 rule applies. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you have 20% of your activities account for 80% of your results, or 20% of your clients give you 80% of your commissions, for example, or where you spend most of your time, let's say prospecting, that's going to be the most important factor because that's what determines your success. So focus on income generating activities like prospecting, setting meetings, dealing with clients directly, and don't waste your time with administration, labeling binders and so forth. And at the same time, look at your client list and say, well, if I deal with all these clients, are there some clients who are going to waste my time or that are not as effective for what I'm trying to achieve? So therefore, focus your time on the people or the clients that will give you the greatest results. So always apply the 80-20 rule and always know that you must focus on the most important tasks like income generating activities. Every salesperson has fears, or every person for that matter has fears. But salespeople sometimes they have obviously the fear of rejection or fear of failure, and it manifests, by doing less phone calls. So fear is the main reason for failure in sales. If you can shake off or get rid of that fear, then there's nothing that you cannot achieve. So remember, fear is your biggest enemy. You are your biggest enemy. So we have 3 basic fears, which are fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of success. So therefore, your psychology matters. Write down all your fears. Write down why you're maybe afraid or what could potentially go wrong or why you're hesitant and so forth. And once you are aware of those fears and you do things despite the fear will dissipate. It will disappear. So therefore, work on yourself by being self-confident, by showing courage, by being active, by not letting fear get in your way, and then there's nothing that you cannot achieve. Now, how do you plan your week? And I want to show you or explain to you how I used to do it. So let's say you have here the days of your week, huh? Okay. So let's say this is your week. And here, let's say you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay, for example. And then let's say Monday morning, you can have an appointment, let's say from 8 to 10, then one from 10 to 12, okay? Then in the afternoon, let's say from like 2 to 4, and then maybe from 4 to 6, for example. So let's say you have these times available. And the way I used to work is I used to say, okay, well, I have a certain amount of administration or, things that I have to do. I have to do sports for myself, for my health. I have to do prospecting and this and that. So let's say, I decide to do prospecting here, and I decide to do, let's say, prospecting, here on Saturday morning, okay, for example. And all the other times basically are available and have those little boxes here. And when I make a phone call, and let's say here I have, Friday afternoon is my private time, okay, so I plan ahead. So I know exactly on which days I have available appointments and where I can't do anything and where I have prospecting. So let's say a client tells me, oh, can you meet Wednesday, let's say at 4? And I say, no, I'm sorry, I already have an appointment. In reality, I don't have an appointment, but I planned my prospecting time during that time. So therefore, I'm not changing it. It's like a set meeting, okay? But I have availability here, or here, whatever. And I can say, okay, client, I can meet you here. And then I cross off that time, in my calendar. So I do this until I have all the empty boxes crossed off where my whole week has been planned out. And you can typically plan about 60 to 70% of your week where you say that's where you have time available for clients. That's when you do prospecting. That's when you have personal things. And for example, when you say I go to the gym, let's say in the morning at that particular time, then you should make it just as important as a client meeting, okay? Or if you say I want to prospect at a certain time, then that's what you do, and you don't deviate, okay? So it's important for you, or family time for that matter. When you say this is where I have family time, then that's the family time, and you can't change it. So plan your week in advance. Plan the times where you have, administration or downtime or whatever. Plan everything, and then focus on setting those appointments where you have those available slots. Being a great salesperson also means being a great communicator and psychologist. Every successful person is automatically a great communicator. So therefore, I urge you to learn everything about communication that you can. And you don't need to make every single mistake that other people have made. You can learn from other successful people. You can learn from books. And I would recommend the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettker, and Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. So you need those kind of skills or attitudes to improve your communication skills. And you can also talk to other successful salespeople and learn from them and learn their techniques and learn their way of thinking so that you can become a great communicator. And that's the basis for every success in life, no matter what you do, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in business. You have to sell yourself constantly with your family, with your boss, with clients, and so forth. So the better you know this topic, the more successful you can be. Well, people say you must be born as a salesperson, okay? Because some people, let's say, are more introverted and other people are more extroverted. And let's say some people are more the accountant type and other people are just tucker, and they're more likely to become salespeople. However, here's what I know. I've met many people who are not as outgoing, don't have that talker mentality, but who were great salespeople, okay? So is it true that you must be born as a salesperson? This is a joke. Yes, you must first be born so you can become a salesperson, okay? So everyone can become a salesperson. And it's a skill that is learnable, okay? So all the sales skills are learnable, and it doesn't matter whether you're an outgoing person or more, introverted person. In the end, it's the activities that you do, like setting appointments, meeting with clients, explaining your products, making the presentation, and closing the deals. And sometimes I've seen, let's say, people that were not so loud and were maybe more conservative looking and maybe a little bit more closed off, who had the best sales results because automatically clients would trust them more because they were less of a talker and more of a, they would have that trust feeling that people needed to buy their products. So what's really important is to be self-disciplined, okay, to learn the skills and to have the right mental attitude. And if you do that, anyone can learn the skills and anyone can become successful as a salesperson. Now, what you should do also is you should look at your critical success factors. And let's say, you have, for example, here, prospecting as one of the factors. And you say here, from 1 to 10, okay, here 1, here's a 10. Where do you stand in the area of prospecting? And let's say you say here, I'm at the 7, okay? And then you have another factor, let's say, like presentation, okay? Presentation skills. Then closing, and so forth. So you have a number of factors that are key factors or critical success factors when it comes to your sales process. And each one of them, you should judge yourself in the areas from 1 to 10 and see how well you think you do, okay? And honestly, I've done this test with many of my salespeople, and some salespeople say, well, I'm a 7 at prospecting, maybe a 5 at presenting, maybe a 4 at closing, and so forth. And they would give themselves, they judge themselves, but the reality is that most salespeople judge themselves better than they actually are. So if you don't have at least an 8 or a 9 in any of those areas, it means that there's work to do. It means that you need to improve that particular area by learning some more skills, by training, and by asking, let's say, your sales manager for tips and advice and so forth. So you need to be in every single area, at least an 8 or a 9, better being a 10, obviously, so that there's no real weaknesses, because obviously you're only as strong as your weakest link in those success factors, okay? So one of those factors could be the determining factor while you're not getting ahead. Now, how do you double your results, okay? And there is a method, it's called incremental improvements, okay? And it's from Brian Tracy, it's not from me, but I really want to show you, and I hope Brian forgive me for copying that. Let's say you have, let's say 7 areas. You have, let's say, area number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And let's say this is prospecting, this is, segmentation, problem identification, objection closing, and so forth. Okay, so you have those factors. And let's say you start being a 1.00, okay? And now instead of trying to improve that particular area by, 100%, let's say you only improve it by 10%. So times 1.1, okay? So obviously 1 times 1.1 is 1.1. Okay. And then let's say area number 2, now you're at 1.1. You also improve this by 1.1, and then, all of a sudden you get 1.21. Then you're at 1.21, you increase the third area by another 10%, then you're 1.33 and so forth. And in the end, if you improve every area by 10%, you're basically doubled your results or your skills in your overall results. So by taking each area and it's simply improving it by 10%, it will have a greater effect on your overall result. Well, when I first became a salesperson, I was working as a financial planner. And the only way how we would get clients was through referrals from existing clients. And we wouldn't do cold calling like in the traditional way. We would always ask each client for referrals. But because we did it consistently and with every client, we received 10, 20 names from each person after each meeting. And this is how we did it. I made an agreement with each client at the very beginning when I sat down with the person. I said to him the following thing. I said, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, you see, I came here because of Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith referred me to you because he thought that you could profit from my services. Now, I want to make a deal with you. Instead of charging you for my services, for my time and so forth, would you be open or willing to refer me to other people if you're 100% happy with what I have to offer? And then the client says, yeah, sure, of course. And then the second question I use is, well, Mr. Client, usually I get between 10 and 20 referrals from my clients. And then he's like, oh, not that many? I thought maybe one or two. I said, well, you see, a lot of people can profit from these services, and the more people I get referred to, the better for me. So can we agree on 10 to 20 people? And then it's important for you to get the second yes from the client. So he says, oh, okay. And then I said, okay. And sometimes I even shake hands. So, all right, if you like what I have to say and what I have to offer, then can we make a deal that you can refer me to other people? Okay, sure. All right. Handshake. Now, at the end of my presentation or initial analysis of his situation, I leave a sheet of paper with the client that has empty slots to fill out. And I say, Mr. Client, if I present you next time with all those solutions, are you willing to refer me to other people? And he says, yeah, sure, like we agreed. Okay, so you see, each time I'm consistently asking about referrals, and I'm making a deal with the client to receive the referrals, basically in exchange or for payment, so to speak. And at the end of my consultation, I receive that list with all the names that I can contact. And when I then prospect, I can say, Mr. Client, I called someone up and said, hey, I met Mr. Smith. He said that, I can give you a call and so forth. And 50% of the resistance is already gone. 50% of the trust is already there because I was referred rather than just making a phone call or a cold call, okay? So working with referrals can be extremely effective, and I want to encourage you to incorporate that referral strategy into every sales strategy that you have, that you use, because it works and it's very effective. It makes your phone time much less. The trust is already there. You can work with people, and it's going to be so much easier for the entire sales process. And obviously, if you have A clients, you get other A clients, and it's just a great way to get new clients. You see, some people, let's say they become manager, okay? And then they are busy with organization and other things and so forth. But I have a question for you. Let's say, no matter what you do, okay, no matter what your position is, let's say you make an additional 5 calls per day, okay? So you make 5 calls per day, but you make it on a consistent basis. Not more, not less, 5 calls a day. Now let's say you work 250 days per year. Then you will have an extra 1,250 calls that you have made. Let's say you hate prospecting. Let's say you're not good at prospecting, but every day on a consistent basis, you make 5 calls. Do you think, no matter what you do and what your position is and so forth, if you made these additional 5 calls per day or an additional 1,250 calls per year, that it would influence your overall sales result? And the answer is clearly, of course it does. Yes, it does. I don't know how many deals you will close. I don't know how many clients and which clients you will get, but you will be definitely better off and have a better result than if you don't do this, okay? So I want to encourage you to do this despite your fear, despite what you think and feel and believe and so forth. Just do it on a consistent basis, only 5 calls a day, and if you do this for 1 year, your overall result can double, triple, or whatever, quadruple. It can really change your life. So the simple fact of doing something consistently can change everything. Then as a salesperson, you always need to set goals. Monthly goals and yearly goals, obviously. And because you can plan your goals, because you're in a numbers game as a salesperson, everything is plannable and everything is achievable, okay? So you need to set a number of goals. And you can make a plan and you can set deadlines and you can quantify your goals, and you need a specific plan or even mini goals on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and so forth. And that will help you to achieve your goals. Now, let's say you have a dream. Let's say you want to have a Ferrari, okay? And let's say your goal is to have a Ferrari. And the way you do it is like this. Obviously, you want to dream about it and you want to say, okay, the Ferrari Testarossa model, so-and-so, I want to have it by the end of the year, by December 31st, and it's going to cost me $250,000, okay? So now you take $250,000, and that's, the price for your Ferrari. But now instead of saying, oh, I need $250,000, you break it down into activities. You break it down into, okay, how many months? So let's say, okay, you have 12 months, so divided by 12, okay? So what's that per month? And then divided, per week and so forth, and you break it down further, and then you say, okay, how many actual meetings do I have to have in order to achieve this goal? And then you break it down into daily activities, and if you consistently do those type of activities, you will definitely achieve your goal no matter what, because your success is plannable. And remember, you alone are responsible for your results. It's not your company, it's not your leads, it's not the clients, it's not the market, it's not the products or services and so forth. You alone are responsible. And if something is not working out, you must figure out how to change it. You must figure out how to fix it. You are always responsible, because let's say you make $50,000 a year. There's other people who make $500,000 a year with the same market, the same clients, the same circumstances, but they figured out a way how to do it. So the question is, what are you not doing, or what are you doing wrong, and what do you need to change? So you are always responsible no matter what.